Hi, I'm Jared Coder,
And I'm Tony Stoddard.
and I'm here to tell you today how I met Tony Stoddard. In my pursuit of music, I came down to Virginia and I found out about a store on the Anderson Highway called Powhatan Music. And I went in and I asked if I could be taught how to play the bass more appropriately than I had been playing it. And I was introduced to Tony.
My store manager told me one day that a guy came in looking for bass lessons and that he wanted them on Saturdays. So we're usually closed on Saturday, but I've always said at the store that if someone needs a lesson in some instrument that I can teach, that I'll accommodate them any way I can. So it just so happens that a few days later, another guy came in the store and wanted bass lessons on a Saturday. So, bang, I had two students on Saturdays going forward, at least initially.
At some point, the lessons turned into not just lessons, right? Wasn't there a local breakfast buffet involved?
Yeah, Tony, realizing my absence of proper nutrition, said we probably ought to eat before we start playing music. And evidenced likely by my play style and inability to play very well on an empty stomach, he conditioned me and taught me that the place to eat breakfast was no other than the county seat.
Absolutely, and Saturday mornings, breakfast buffet at that. So that was a real deal sweetener right there.
How long did your lessons last, Jared?
I think they were supposed to be 30 minutes, and most of the time they went somewhere about 2 to 2.5 hours. And I think that's what began the transition from just learning to play music to really understand a little bit more about what being a good Christian is, and what being Christian was, and sort of what that really looks like to a guy like me who didn't have it in his life growing up, or probably anybody as a as a mentor. And I don't throw that word around lightly, to kind of guide and all that. So I had the benefit of the learning about Jesus in conjunction with learning how to play music.
Well, frankly, the lessons started out a bit slow because Jared did have some experience playing, but he didn't have much practical musical knowledge. And so we really had to start at square one. And there was a lot of talking involved.
I learned about the clap. Let me tell you a little about the clap. Clap is the timing. And I was waiting for the day, if I didn't get it, it was going to go to a. But we got through that painlessly, or probably more painfully for Tony. I learned the basics of the E, A, D, G, and maybe the proper timing of such. That went on for a period of a couple months, right? In earnest, and some good breakfast and some good conversations. I didn't realize it at that time, but that would be that formation of good, of being a good Christian, or understanding what that really was. I think a lot of faith comes down to having an example or something to look to or aspire to be. I think some people pick up the Bible and just read it and say, "Oh, this is what the roadmap is," right? I've heard it said that it's the basic instructions before leaving Earth. Even I'm not really sure. I was still new to it, and I was still trying to find my feet and play some music. I was looking for a hobby. I was looking for something to do. What I didn't realize is what I was answering a calling, and I didn't know what that was, and I didn't know what it meant when people would say, God puts people in your life. He does things for you to help you get to where you're supposed to be. Some of them are reluctant, and some of them are easy, but that's sort of what started happening.
As part of our lessons, I'm sure it's been a year or more since we first started working together. And, and I don't quite remember how I introduced my faith, but it probably came by way of, this is something that I do on Sundays. I play with a praise team at our church, and this is my involvement.
I think the introduction to faith by Tony was when we were sitting at the breakfast table, and he said, should we say grace? And it was like, that probably the first time I'd ever done that. And it was like, so Tony's introduction to faith to me was, hey, let's have this breakfast. And I say, pause. And I had a moment of pause. I said, all right. I bowed my head and I listened. I was like, oh, all right. So that's that. It's that first introduction, that first step. And that was very early. I don't know if you recall that. At least it resonates in my mind, because I was like, oh, so that's what we've all said grace or a version of it at some dinner, someplace in our life. But I think that was the first time it hit me, because it was so personal, I guess you could say, to some extent.
All right, so now I want you to talk about when you invited Jared, what your thought process was, and you invite him to come and check things out at church as a musician.
So after perhaps a period of 6 to 8 months or so, Jared was demonstrating some proficiency and consistent being able to get around on the instrument. And it's in the back of my mind that I think I could possibly encourage him to become further involved in his faith and through worship music, and an opportunity to play at PCC if that came around. And so at one point it did. I don't quite remember the circumstance. We may have needed a bass player because someone had to cancel at the last minute. But in any event, I asked him if he would be inclined to play for a Sunday, and encouraged him that I would help him work through the music so that he was as prepared as possible. And so he agreed, and that was the start of playing at PCC. Our lessons at that point pretty much evolved into working through the music choices that were made for a given Sunday that he was signed up for. And that's how that went from that point on.
Jared, what was that like when you got that invitation? And do you remember like the first time you played? Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, like few things in your life that, moments of consequences, I like to refer to them, was the coalescence of working towards a goal and finding your faith, and then finding that there's a spot where you could do both. I don't think I thought at any point that those two things could coexist. And there's a couple things that go along with that, mentoring, support, and encouragement come in a lot of forms. But when somebody's teaching you to play, and then you're playing, and then you're able to do it in a space where you're able to bring music and your faith and other people's faith together in a way it's really special. And I don't know if I could put my finger on that feeling at that moment, but I tell you, getting on the stage for the first time and just getting the nod going, you got this, kid, and it was like, okay. And then it was an amazing moment and a period of time. It seemed like it happened very quickly, but it evolved over a period of time. It was pretty incredible. Probably top 5 things in my lifetime that I've ever been asked to do, pursued doing, and those don't go lightly. It's everything from marriage to joining the military to certain things that I've committed my heart and my soul and my mind to. And boy, it's been incredible. I can't. There's an appreciation and a thankfulness that I'm never really good at over expressing, but it's pretty amazing. I still to this day can't thank you enough. It's I don't get asked to do too many things like that, and it was pretty great.
So commitment really is a cornerstone of Jared's evolving as a musician and a bass player. I would not term him as a child prodigy in any way on the instrument in the way that some people take it so naturally and just, but Jared exhibited commitment to what I was teaching him and application at home apart from lessons, and he just advanced at a not a phenomenal rate, but at a consistent rate that allowed him in a fairly short time to be able to come on stage and contribute and serve on the PCC worship team.
Jared said just a minute ago, he said that that invitation was one of the top 5 things in his life of consequence. How does it feel to know that you were part of something that important to someone's entire life?
It's actually quite humbling, and I don't have the perspective on that he does. I'm very thankful that I was used in that way to help him develop a stronger relationship with Christ and with his instrument.
You know, the journey is long, and it is fulfilling, and being part of small groups, especially being part of one of the ones that Tony leads. And we learned a concept called the long obedience in the right direction. And those are a series of incremental steps towards getting to where you're really supposed to be. And it has to do a lot with removing or changing the way that you were and adjusting and contorting and becoming the person you're supposed to be. Music and the playing of music and the reading of the words are the way that I have become exposed, introduced, and otherwise understand what that is supposed to be and what that's about. And there's a number of things. It's harmonizing with the singers. It's getting the notes right. It's understanding the words and what they mean and the stories behind them and the scripture references and the myriad of those things. It's I find myself sometimes laying my head on the pillow at night and reviewing. It's like, oh, that's what that meant, or having the connection or a portion of the message connecting with some of the words and how they come together. It's not always evident from just reading the word, or at least it wasn't for me. And that's what's special, is that this isn't just something you learn a song, hey, great, we're on to the next thing. There is a connection to those things, and they build a foundation of faith that is it's special. It's been amazing, say the least. And I found that getting the word through the music has been the part that has touched my soul the deepest, in the way that I don't think reading it would have been, or sitting in presumably maybe a church. It is the place where I found my connection to God. It's when people ask me, like, well, how did you end up in this space? If you'd talked to people who knew me years ago, even 5 years ago, they would have said, you're what? You're playing bass in a worship band on Sundays? It didn't happen accidentally. You're called. And I was fortunate that I was in a space and a place where people took me in and said, hey, this is what this can be. I don't know. I guess a good thing I didn't pick up a fiddle or something. It'd still be.
So as a believer and a person who's committed to sharing the gospel with others in all parts of life, this relationship that Jared and I have established through music has really shown me that God can work in any situation if we're willing to share him with others, and can evolve into the betterment of a person's spiritual life.
I would just say that with your heart open and your eyes open and your spirit open, anything is possible. Keep an eye out for the signs and be open to people sharing and trying to help and develop you. It's real easy to resist things that you don't understand. I think one of the things that I probably most appreciate about my kinship, friendship with Tony is that there's never a question that goes unanswered. Whenever I'm sort of stuck on something and I'm kind of hung up on it. There's a moment of Tony levity as well as wisdom in a lot of the things that he shares. I'll share one example that I kind of point back to regularly because it sticks out in my mind. A struggling situation at work, situation with something other than that, and I said to Tony in a moment of frustration, I just don't understand why this is like this. He says, that's because we are in this world, but we're not of this world. And I said, there's been I'm giving you one example of probably a dozen that have hit me. And I was like, yeah. So when you have a moment of, pause or like reservation, it's nice to be able to pull one of those out and say, somebody else has gone through this before. When you're late to faith in life, that you don't have this foundational thing of all these examples throughout your life. So for me, it's like, this is pretty special. And I thank you, Tony. It's been, I was hoping I wouldn't get choked up, but I thank you for bringing this into my life, and thank you for guiding me. I'm sorry I'm not always the best musician or anything, but the fact that you encourage me to get up on that stage and express the side of me that I've not always been able to get out is much appreciated. Thanks. It's special, and I appreciate you more than you can know.
I love you too, brother.
Always puts things in the most simplest terms. Long obedience in the right direction. If somebody's looking for some guidance, it can take you to a place you didn't know you could get to. Appreciate you, brother. Thank you. Thank you very much. There are moments when you're going along this journey and you're getting better, you're working on your music and stuff, and there are moments that you hit the right notes or you count on one hand the number of mistakes you made in a worship set. But one of the more gratifying moments was we're at Riverside, and I think I hit it all. I felt like I got it all today. I got it right. And Tony looks over and with the same sentiment that the farmer used in Charlotte's Web, and when he said, "That'll do, pig," he just kind of gave me the nod, and that was my "that'll do, pig" moment for the day. So while he's not a man of many words, when you do get them, they mean a lot. And it's if you get fortunate enough to spend time with Tony or be in his presence, you can learn a lot.
You almost got an eye roll there. He was really close to rolling his eyes at you. That's good. That'll do, pig. That'll
And
do,
it's
pig.
especially important today with the pig reference
Yes,
there.
it is.
It's like,
You're an exceptional guy.
I don't know about that, but
Yeah, you're exceptional.
I'm trying to be better. That's all.
Yeah.
I'll just keep working at that.
You're the kind of guy that music teachers hope to have.
Really?
Yes, because only a small percentage really apply themselves and become passionate about it, and that makes it worth it all. All the hours, all the repetition, all the reiteration of things that you can't that we hand you in the moment and you can't absorb, but we go over it and over it, and when it comes together, it's apparent to us that you've been applying yourself and listening, and it's gratifying for us as well.
Well, it means a lot. You don't get a lot of reassurance in life on a lot of things, many things at all. But to be able to give something back, it's to being called to do something. It's really hard to put that in terms, and to experience it just an hour and a half ago, where we're playing, and I look out in the audience, and people have their hands in the air, and you're playing an instrument, and you realize I'm not thinking about what I'm playing. It's happening because you're channeling this moment, you're channeling this Holy Spirit, and you're giving of yourself to these folks who are experiencing it with you, and I don't think of myself as having any kind of a gift. I think of it as a constant pursuit of improvement, and it really is special. And to be able to deliver that on a weekly basis, there's something about getting that email for 2 weeks from now, saying, "You've been invited to play at the blah, 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 blah," or do it. And I say, "Oh my gosh, what song is this? Is it something I'm going to know? Is it something, or maybe it's something new?" And it's been... that's part of it that's just really special. It's like it's not just about my journey. It's that being a good Christian or being a Christian is that you're sharing this with other people and they're not all like you and they're not all from the same background or space. It's like, wow. And seeing the smiling faces of people recognize you. It's as crazy as this sounds. I'm running into people now like, hey, I saw you play last weekend. It's like,
How
oh
about
my
that?
goodness. I was like, wow, I'm not looking for fame,
Yeah.
but acknowledgement or just saying, hey, thank you, sounded really good is pretty, and I'm just thankful that if I can do a little bit, 10% of what you've done for me, I feel like at that point I've accomplished something that's pretty special.
You know, when Jared started lessons with me, he had been playing with some friends back in his old neighborhood, sitting in, if you will, but informal, getting together and jamming, and was trying to play some well-known common songs, rock and folk songs, but he had no idea what he was doing or how to get around or what key he was in or anything of that. He had no idea. He didn't know the number system. He didn't know steps and half steps. He is completely, he just had a little experience with his instrument. But he knew where he wanted to go, and he knew that if he applied himself as he has in other areas of life, he's a very accomplished guy in many areas, motorcycle mechanic and a hospital technician, equipment technician, all kinds of things. And now he's adding musician to that because simply through his willingness to commit to this project, and he's also becoming a great servant for the church and for God. So
I hope to continue with that.
it's a real blessing.
Jared, haven't you invited some?
Yeah. So part of this whole journey too was learning that it isn't just about your path and how you pursue it, but it's introducing it to other people. I think, like Tony did for me, was they may not be musically inclined. I've taken my neighbors, I've taken people that I go to work with, anybody who expresses an interest or even makes a comment about, well, I haven't been, or I don't know, or the place that I used to go, or something. To me, those are all introductions or opportunities to bring them into something that means so much to me. If you would bring somebody to your favorite restaurant or even introduce them to music that hey, try this CD, just listen to it on your way home from work. I don't see PCC as any different from that. I don't always know if they're going to stay or if it's going to be the place where they find their home. But if they can get something out of it like I have and experience what that is, and that's been really great because then you have a great conversation about it after. I noticed that some people are constant in their faith, some people have fallen away, and some folks are falling towards. If at any point I can be the reassurance of them going, or at least getting them back to start or finding them a place, I think PCC has been that place for me to accept, embrace, or bring in people who aren't traditional. I don't know what a traditional, servant would be, but for me, it's been, that embrace. Everybody's been encouraging and supportive and great. PCC is a great place to come. If you can't find a home here, you're not looking for faith. To me, it's that simple.